All right. We're locked and loaded. Well, thank you for your patience. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
How do you like Squatch so far?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. I like the events here.
Yeah. We walked in and there was a woman's workout group. I think it's Warrior Woman, and
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's who was leading that?
Danielle Gertner.
Danielle, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So they do that. They do community workouts at the end of every month as well. They've got the Coliseum too, and they've got different sessions like yoga. Actually, the last time I did yoga at the Coliseum was the day I tore my Achilles.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I overstretched
Yeah.
that morning. But it was really cool to be one of your clients. So I was introduced by Ryan Encinas, who we both were mutual friends.
He's
I've had Ryan on the podcast a while ago, and I think he wants to come back on and provide some updates on his journey.
Oh, he's got a brain. Oh my God, he's got a brain.
Yeah, I feel like when he was on, I didn't really talk much. It was
that sounds like a conversation with Ryan.
Yeah, but it's a good thing because he provides a lot of informative. I
love talking with him.
Yeah, information and yeah, I mean when it comes to like Ryan, he has like one foot in the orthopedic, surgical, traditional medicine field, and then also in the holistic health field, and so it's cool. And he was very helpful. Aside from recommending you for physical therapy, he also was like helpful with finding a surgeon and just feedback for a surgeon, and provided a mineral supplement for just building the cells or vitalizing the cells within my body for the healing process. And a plethora of other things. He was super supportive. Ryan was here at Squatch when I tore my Achilles. I had ended a conversation with him, and then he walked away, and then I was just playing basketball, and it just snapped. And so working with you, he told me that you were a Chek practitioner. I've had 2 other people on my podcast that were Chek practitioners as well. And I find that every single person that has focused into this institute, this academy, they seem like very bright, thriving human beings. And, I was looking through the book that you let me borrow by Paul Chek.
How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy.
Yeah. And I didn't get through the whole thing, but it was, I was able to like skim through it and see, the index of what he covers, all the movements, all the functional movements, and we can kind of get into that. But it just seems like one of the more optimal health protocols that I've seen. So yeah, I was thankful for your expertise for getting this rehabilitated, this Achilles rehabilitated. And I wanted to ask you how, like, maybe to backtrack before you got into the Chek Institute, what prompted you to be naturally curious with becoming a Chek practitioner? Because you've gotten your master's, right?
Yeah.
So because that's a big investment.
10 years.
10 years, even financially too, I'm sure. Yeah. So have you always been this way? Have you always been like No?
I've been a do it my way person most of my life. And I think that's what makes this easier for me. But like I was thrown into this, I was in my degree when I first went to college. I wanted to major in psychology. And then once I started doing that, I was like, nah, I absorb people's emotions too much. Like, I don't want to go that way. But, it turns out that's what I do now. That I just learned how to, mitigate that.
Yeah.
But then I changed my degree program because I did cross country in college.
Okay.
So I was already into like the body and sports and athletics and like how to move well and like learning things in general. But like mostly when I was in college, I just wanted to be smart, and I wanted to be seen as smart. So I was like going to get straight A's and going to do all the things. And so exercise performance program was like your last 2 years in school were just 15 of us and you had to apply to be in the program.
Okay.
So I was really interested in getting into it.
This was in college?
In college,
okay.
Yeah. So last 2 years of college were just like intense exercise study. And we had an exercise lab, learning how to lift well, like learning the science of lifting and like the science of why the body moves the way it moves.
Sure.
And like we did cadaver studies. And so it was amazing. And then when I got out of college, I was like, I guess I'm going to be a personal trainer. Like, because you're groomed in this program to take the CSCS, which is Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. And it's the most revered certification that you can have in the United States. I don't know about in the world, but it's one of the only ones that you have to have a degree in order to take the test. Okay. And like a lot of like NFL coaches are, or like sports coaches are CSCS certified. They have to be in order to be like a professional. So most of our program, you were either groomed to go to PT school or you were groomed to be a professional sports coach. So I knew I didn't want to do that, either of those, because I did not want to go to any more schooling, like traditional schooling to do PT. But I also was like, I don't want to be in professional sports.
Why didn't you want to do any more traditional schooling?
It was exhausting. And because I'm such a perfectionist. So like I had that on top of like, studying all these hours, and I was exhausted by the end of school, like plus running cross country and being in college at the same time. And no one tells you how to rest. No one tells you how to eat well. Like they put me on birth control because they're like, oh, you're not getting your period. So like, here you go. We're going to take this thing. Not, are you eating enough fat in your diet? So it was just like.
Wait, so they gave you birth control because you weren't getting?
Yeah, they do that to lots of female athletes. They'll just start giving them birth control, which that's also like side note, birth control periods are not a real period because you never ovulate. So they're just like, they kind of trick your body into this weird non-cycle cycle. Yeah. So that's what they do to female athletes traditionally is when they're not bleeding, they're like, here you go. Like this will save you instead of talking about diet and rest and recovery.
Yeah. And one aspect of birth control that seems to be becoming more viral is that, it's very common for people or women to take birth control. I mean, I would say for the past few decades. And, supposedly, and you can maybe help me, divulge on this a little bit better, but when they take birth control, some of their senses are almost like shut off, and their ability to, essentially what I heard was that when they come off, they stop taking birth control, they find that they're not as attracted to their partner. Can you dive into that a little bit?
I experienced that. So basically birth control like bombards your body with fake estrogen. And so your body kind of thinks you're pregnant, but not really. That's what I came to understand about it. And so like, it was weird. Like when I was on it, I felt like someone could pop me like a balloon. Like I just felt puffy. Yeah. And then I was running 55 miles a week. Yeah. And then I started getting all these weird injuries too. So that's really when I started being curious about my body was like injuries that no one could figure out. They were just like, oh, you have to go do this thing, or oh, tie your shoes differently, or And so it's just like, but with birth control and like attraction, it changes your hormones, and our hormones dictate everything for us. And so like I was dating someone for 5 years. And so like in 2 years were college and 3 years outside of college. And like when I got off of birth control, I stopped liking the way that he smelled.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That's so wild. Yeah. That is crazy.
I was like, uh-oh, this is a problem.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to touch your penis anymore. This is not okay. So like it really because when I was on it, I was on something called the NuvaRing. And so it's like this hormonal ring that you just put in there and you have to take out. And 2 days later you bleed. And so like every time I would take it out, I felt bipolar. Like I felt like I didn't have control over my emotional responses to things. And my roommates would point it out to me. They were like, did you notice that you just react? I was like, oh shoot, like I had no idea. And so like it was just this, gradual observation of it all. But when I got out of college, when did I officially stop that? I don't think I remember when I officially stopped it, whether I stopped it when I got out of college, because I didn't know real information, because I might have stopped it when I started working for Dan. So like Dan Hellman used to teach for the Chek Institute, and he's the first person who hired me out of college because he was looking for somebody.
Sure.
Because I was just going for like your standard personal training jobs. I was like, I guess I'm going to do, personal training and see who will hire me. And so I was just about to take my test for CSCS. So then the certified strength and conditioning specialist.
Yep.
So like I took that test and I passed. And so he was super stoked about that because that kind of levels you up in the world of personal training.
Yeah.
You just look like you know your shit.
Yeah.
But he got me into all the Chek stuff. And so he just told me everything. Like I had a belly button ring at the time. He's like, you have to take that out. That's disrupting your abs and you need to stop eating sandwiches every day and just like all the things. And I was like, whoa. I was like,
yeah, it's like a radical, I mean, it's what I've found is there's so many things that we do that affect our health. And we've been sold that from so many different specialists or vendors or, businesses, whatever it may be, that you need this product to be healthy, blah, blah, blah. And so like, yeah, even the belly button ring thing, like that kind of blows my mind that it,
a lot of girls today still have it. I've had to tell some of my women clients and like, that's probably causing you problems. And like, it's a scar that's there for forever too.
Yeah.
So, but having metal in your body disrupts the flow of energy through the system.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's pretty crazy and it's very fascinating. So it's like, I just got introduced to this whole whirlwind of information and he's just like, you're going to change your life. And it was interesting because I had already knew my ex's name, his name is Matt. And so I already knew Matt and I were just like not going to be a thing anymore. But, you're kind of like, I commit to things and I'm just like, we're going to, see what happens.
Sure.
But I took my first C.H.E.K class and the assistant in class said at the beginning, like, warning for you guys, like if your partners don't want to come along in this journey, like we usually see a lot of divorces happen pretty quickly. And I like had this felt sense in that moment. I was like, shoot.
Who said that?
The assistant teaching class for Chek.
Wow.
Yeah. It's true though.
They've just seen, because it radically changes everything.
You see the world for what it is.
Yeah, different things.
So like you're introduced to the truth of the world. And if somebody who you're, romantically involved with, who you're going to call your partner in life, like if they don't want to see that truth with you, it just doesn't work.
I think that's, something similar to what I was discussing with you off the mic when we were doing some functional movements outside. How I was feeling this kind of malaise and melancholy, even despite being like with people that I love and, in a nice area. I was just like, what is going on? Like I've just been, and granted, I tore my Achilles and things have shifted and I've taken things, like I did take like, painkillers for the first couple of days after surgery. And, but overall I've been pretty good with staying with, eating pretty clean, and all that. But like when this shifts for you, when your perspective of health and what you should eat and like, it just, it radically shifts your perspective of how we function as a society, like what we do for fun, what we do socially. And then everybody around you is still doing the same stuff. And what I found is like, it's really difficult to gradually try to, help others around you. And so like when I go back home, you see certain people, friends, family, whatever, who they're doing these different things that is terrible for their health.
Yeah.
And years and years ago, when I first started getting into like self-improvement, I was like 25, I would just kind of like blurt it out. I'd be like, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. And I've talked about it on the podcast before, but eventually I realized that wasn't okay to do it that way.
Yeah.
Because like subconsciously the person is almost receiving a message that is like, oh, I'm not worthy enough for you. Or like, in some regard, like they're like, okay, I don't know. It's like somewhat offensive to them in a way, even though you're trying to help them.
But they're not asking.
And they're not asking for it.
That's the big piece is they're not asking. And that's a lot of what I learned because sometimes you just get to this place when you start to see the truth and only accept the truth, like your world gets smaller.
I know.
Period. The end.
It's pretty difficult.
Yeah.
But there's no looking back. Like you can't,
Mhm.
because then if you just try to suppress and be like, well, I'm going to go back to my,
Yeah.
my previous life of
Mhm.
of illusions and false things and
Yeah.
unhealthy stuff, then you just now.
Uh-huh.
Like there's no
You feel
unseeing it, and so you have to continue forward. So what's cool, like I didn't do it until this last time, or I just got back from Massachusetts, and there's a bunch of small ranchers all around the area in my hometown, and even on the Cape. There's a farmers market,
Super
and
cool.
my family's now buying like local grass-fed beef and local eggs that are all just it's a more intentional source and it's healthier.
Mm.
And I didn't really do that by like forcing it on them. I just kind of like introduced, I like showed one of the farms to my father, and I was like, hey, would it be okay if we get some of this meat? Because I would love to like just incorporate this into my own meal plan. And I think I did it okay. But like just trying to like lead by example. So
Yeah.
instead of saying, you know what, you need to eat this, I can just go about saying, I'm going to go to the farmer's market because I prefer this meat. It's more expensive, but I also know it's raised by with more intention, with more care, and not with bullshit pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, hormones, antibiotics, all this bullshit. And
right.
And and then that's really it. You just kind of lead by example. And so yeah, we just started eating that almost the whole time I was back home. So it's kind of cool to see that. But yeah, it's difficult to like see certain family members that are just still in that paradigm in a way. So
Yeah, it definitely can be. And like, we don't have to be friends with our family. And it just depends on
that's a hard truth
it is true though. You don't have to be friends with anyone who you don't like. Or who doesn't like you, who doesn't respect you, or who you're just like, we just don't really vibe. Like I had a really cool experience like with my dad over the years, because he's always called me with like this ailment or this, and how do you fix it, and and he's always like, Dr. Sawyer, I need your help, and he just will go on these things, and and he would never do anything that I told him to do. And so eventually I was like, hey dad, like, I've already answered this question. Like you already have the answers that I recommend. And if you're not going to use them, then I would appreciate it if you stop asking me, unless you actually want help. So it's like, it's being straightforward. I've had a really lot of cool, because my dad and I are super similar. Like I get a lot of my stubbornness from him. Like I get a lot of my perfectionism from him. And so it's like, I know how to talk to that type of brain from a higher level. And so for him, like he used to like call me names and make fun of the way that I eat. He's like, oh, if you're going to eat butter, you're going to get fat. I'm just like,
you have your canola oil and
I was
see how that goes.
But I had another straightforward conversation with him. I was like, listen, dad, I was like, we just won't hang out anymore. Like, we don't have to be friends if you're going to continue to call me names or make fun of what I do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like it. Yeah. And, we can live our lives from different perspectives and still hang out. But I was like, if you're going to poke at me, like, it's not going to fly. Like, this isn't fun. And he heard me and he stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. So, being straightforward, having the courage to do that. Especially with the people that you love, because sometimes we can kind of be people pleasers, or at least I'm speaking for myself. Try not to be like you're somewhat indirect, and you're just coping in a way with, I'll just
that's the fun part
roll
about
with emotions.
People pleasers is it's emotional manipulation. It's not real. It's like it's for you. And then it's kind of for the people around you. But like the disease of people pleasing is just like, it's all emotional manipulation. So I will be okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure they don't do this thing so that way I don't have to deal with the results.
Yeah.
And so it's like, once we see the truth in that, then you can start. Cause like I used to be hardcore in that grain of things until like, I was like, oh shit. Like I was like, I don't want to be this way. Yeah. And so you just have to like focus on why you're doing it and see your own truth. And really commit to letting that go. And it's like, okay, who would I be if I let go of like emotional manipulation,
Sure.
really, not just people pleasing, but if we go the level underneath that. And it's like, oh, I would be open. I would be more carefree. Like I would be more at peace inside of myself.
Yeah.
I would have more acceptance for everybody around me and not let things hit so hard,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I feel like I've felt that progression within my character as of late. I don't know what it was. It might have been a recent plant medicine retreat where I set an intention that helped with that. It's still somewhat there, but it's just placing awareness on when it occurs and just kind of stepping into your authority, remembering like you can still be kind, you can have these balance of virtues, but also just be aligned with yourself and know when to not, when to, don't be kind for the sake of just making sure that their feelings
don't get hurt.
Yeah, don't get hurt.
Yeah.
So,
it's like having the courage to be disliked. And
I read a book.
Yeah.
It's like that exact title.
Yeah.
So,
it's one of my favorite books.
It's a good book.
Mm-hmm. And it's that plus knowing that we don't have to be friends with everybody.
Yeah.
Like including family. Like you're allowed to just not engage.
Right.
And it's okay.
Yeah. So we went on a tangent there from what you said about starting to get into the Chek Institute.
Yeah.
And some of the teachers were saying how, just a heads up, if you're really serious about this, you know, we've seen some divorces, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So at that point, were you still like dating your ex at the time? Okay.
Yeah, I was still with him.
Okay.
I'm stubborn as fuck. Well, realistically, like I have to, like what I've seen about myself, like I will never listen to anybody else's advice if I don't want to emulate a portion of their life and or I don't feel it inside of me yet as the truth. So it might be good advice, but I might still have some things to learn. Like,
hold on, sorry.
Yeah.
All right, we had some technical difficulties there.
I forgot what we were saying. We're talking about the relationship thing.
Well, we were talking about how things are like somewhat perspective shattering, shell shocking
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you were you were talking about, I don't know where the video maybe stopped, but we were talking about how marriages typically fail once one of the partners that begins this C.H.E.K Institute journey.
I know what I was saying.
Yeah.
I was saying how stubborn I am. Well, it's just like things have to feel like they resonate as truth on the inside first. And like we have to be ready to learn a particular thing before we exit a situation or before we go into a situation. And I think that's part of like our soul contracts in life. So it's like I was in this relationship and I knew it, like I had an intuitive feeling, but I wasn't ready to face all of the things that I would need to face in order to completely like bring that to fruition. And so it's interesting to think about it because like in all the clients I've ever seen, it's the same way. Like every single person needs their own personal face with death, like their version of death before they really, really change. And it's different for everybody. Like it could be like, oh shit, I have diabetes now, or like, oh, like I've gained 5 pounds, or, you know, it can be so simple or it could be like super huge. But like for me, I was just like, well, I am broke and, you know, I don't know if this is the actual truth yet. Like I have to see this all the way until like I know it in my bones. And it was until 3 years later, 2.5-ish years later, then I had my own feeling. I was going into HLC3, which is that final level of life coaching. And you take the class with Paul.
Oh, cool.
And I was sitting in the airport on a layover and I was like, oh no. I was like, I'm not going to be able to ignore things anymore to a certain degree when I come home from this class. And so like I sent an email to one of my clients he was a real estate agent. I was like, I need this, this, and this. I had like maybe 3 or 4 clients a week, like barely enough to make it.
As a real estate?
As a coach.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I was working for Dan.
Oh, okay.
At the time, because he hired me doing Chek stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I was also I was also doing assistant work for him. So I was doing like a lot of video editing and like computer managing stuff. He actually let me do his accounting. Like a nice, sweet, trusting person. I'm just like, don't talk to me while I'm doing numbers. This is not my strong suit. But he gave me tons of opportunities. He's just like, I know you need to make money. Like here's all your opportunities. But I sent that email, and then the first day of class, Paul was like, if I had a magic wand and could change anything in your life for the better right now, what would it be? And so he asked that question to everybody in class. And so we spent the first 2 days in class answering everyone's questions.
What did you say?
Well, at first, my avoidant self wanted to bring up my period because I was having terrible menstrual cycles at this time.
Oh, okay.
Like put me on the ground, vomit-inducing pain.
Oh, wow.
Like really, really bad. And I was still running at the time, like I was doing marathon training. And so I was like exhausted and in pain and trying to like learn all this holistic information and like get myself well.
Yeah.
So I was like 2 years into doing this coaching thing and just learning all like sponging in all this information. And so I told, and then the first girl brought up menstrual cycle stuff. I'm like, shit, fine. And so I brought up the relationship. I was like, what do I do? Like, we share all these finances. Like, I don't really have any money right now. That's like the whole story. And I did love him. Like, he was a really cool person, but it was just not there anymore. And Paul, he was like, if you don't leave this relationship right now, he's like, you're not only ruining your life, but you're ruining his, and neither of you will find what you truly love in life. And I was like,
oh boy.
And he's like, you're the conscious one, so this is on you. He's like, you have to figure it out. I was like, fuck, fine. And so like I spent the whole week of class like, learning and grieving the relationship and just being like, okay, I'm gonna I have to let this go. And it satisfied, it was the echo that I needed that satisfied my intuition before I even got to class. Because I had that feeling before I got there.
Yeah.
So, I told him at the end and he was pretty shocked and, because it was, and within a month, I had my own apartment to myself. And within 2 months, I had 0 menstrual pain. And within 3 months, I had a waiting list of clients.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I was seeing like 9 clients a day sometimes.
While you were taking these classes? Or
once I made the decision to leave that relationship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so like I spoke for myself and I freed up tons of energy in my life. But I made the decision that I needed to make in order for me to grow and evolve. Because he wanted to stay a child. Like, he wanted to play tennis and play video games and, like, period, the end. And, fine. And that's just not my jam.
Right.
So it just freed up all this stuff. And so, like, I learned what it felt like to work really hard. And I was also doing, like, C.H.E.K study at that time. And so doing, like, learning new manual therapy techniques. And so I was helping tons of people get out of pain in, like, one session. And I felt like a freaking magician. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got like a good year of just being like busy up to my eyeballs. And we hired another administrative assistant at that time. And she would like look at me every other day and just be like, someone else is calling for you. I was like, what? Like, where's this coming from?
Yeah. And so
it was amazing.
So at that point, what did you have a completed certification?
Well, I had CSCS. And then so Dan was teaching for the Institute at that time. And so he taught that my exercise coach, like my Chek level 1 and my Chek level 2 class.
Okay.
And so I had those. And then I had HLC 1, 2, and 3. I had Eldoa. And so like the G.E.K classes.
Sure.
And then I had all the manual therapy certs from G.E.K. So like jaw, ears, neck, everything in the body from G.E.K. And then I also had like holistic gut healing course. And then I had an energy medicine course. And so I had tons of stuff. Like Dan was just like my OG, like, here you go.
Yeah.
Like he gave me all the information that I needed to do. He helped create me.
Yeah.
Like he was just like, I see this in you and you're going to do this.
Sure.
Like he told me I had to start teaching group classes and like I had to start doing YouTube videos every single week. And I hated being in front of people. I hated being in front of the camera. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
And so he pushed me. Like he pushed me to do to where I am. I would not be here if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, I don't like being in front. I mean, I can do the camera like this, but when it comes to in front of a bunch of people, I definitely need to challenge myself with that.
Yeah, it's really practice. Like, I'm so comfortable with it now because it's just because my first class that he made me teach, 15 people showed up, and I was like, "Ooh, really? Today?"
In person or
in person?
virtual? Okay.
Yeah, in person. And so I was just like, okay, and I just had to get over it.
You had to do it.
You know, like. Because I was super, super anxious. I had really, really bad anxiety issues. Like I had to like really calm myself down to work one-on-one with clients. And like, and I felt pretty embarrassed to talk to people about it. So it was just me dealing with it. And I was like, okay, well, I really don't want to embarrass myself by like breaking out in a sweat. And so I'm just going to like, like really calm everything down. And it took me a few years to just like chill with it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, just practice.
Yeah.
Practice.
Yeah, I feel that. So how would you define or explain to someone other than me what the C.H.E.K Institute is? Yeah, because I mean, I could say, even myself, trying to define it to someone, I might not do it as well as you.
Yeah.
I would go about saying it's a holistic health, a comprehensive holistic health approach that looks at the body as a system of systems.
Yep.
And there are topics and pieces of knowledge, practices that you can implement and absorb that may look like voodoo to traditional society.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect definition of it as a baseline. And it's like, we learn how to be experts of being holistic. Like that would be the one thing that I consider myself an expert in, and maybe movement too. I'm a pretty solid movement teacher. And it's just like being holistic, like knowing which tool to grab for which, person, for which moment. And like, that's the biggest thing. Like the C.H.E.K Institute is like the foundation in which you grow upon. Like I've got, I think like 20 or 30 different certs in different areas.
Yeah, you told me that.
And so it's just like that they all compile on top of this like C.H.E.K Institute, and knowing like, okay, well, I'm going to grab this tool over here, and then I'm going to grab this tool over here. And now I can grab this, and I'm going to send this person to this person because I can't do that thing. Like they're big in teaching people how to refer out. But then once you get to level 5, you've got a lot of really good shit. Like we've got 200 plus different orthopedic assessments that we can do with someone just on a physical level to figure out what's wrong with their body. And you kind of like, and then everyone figures out their own gifts. And so like everybody who was in my level 5 class with me, like we're like a little family now, and like everyone experiences things different, and we talk about all that. And so like for me, I usually get this felt sense of just like, oh no, like you need this thing and you need this supplement. And like, you probably should go over here. And so it's really that's just starts coming to you over time, and you just figure it out. And it's just a practice in trusting yourself and like trusting what you know, and also in like what your soul is going to guide you towards, and what their soul is guiding you towards.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite Paul quotes is like, if you don't know what to do with someone, wear them, and you just put them on. And it's like, how would I feel in this body with all these symptoms that this person is presenting me with? What's wrong? What needs to be realigned? What needs to be recentered? Like, where do I actually feel it? And it helps going into like the emotional component with people. Yeah. Because lots of people don't want to talk about how their, emotions are affecting their digestion and how they're affecting their physical pain.
That's so wild. That was a big mind blower for me, understanding how emotional stress and the lack or inability to process that efficiently.
Yep.
And if you don't, it does stay within you. Like it stays within your body, and it can affect you physically.
Yep.
I've got like I only have like 2 pinned videos on my Instagram profile, and one of them is a part of the conversation with my buddy River, who is a C.H.E.K practitioner. And it was me understanding how, like your thoughts can shape obviously your perspective, and then that can affect your emotions, and then that affects your hormonal system. And yeah, I mean, like everything is interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, yeah, just crazy for me. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And if what people do is they rely on external, I don't know, prescriptions or supplements or whatever to relieve certain physical ailments. And I actually just watched, it was funny, I watched this very calm and collective man that was in the mountains, and it was a 40-minute conversation to himself in the camera, who was previously a neurosurgeon, and he just described how he left after studying at MIT, becoming a neurosurgeon, all the like 20 years of him putting in the work and making tons of money. He realized that this was just a Band-Aid. The neurosurgical processes that maybe helped with some symptom, but it did not help with the underlying cause. And he had to stop. Yeah. He literally quit, and he felt embarrassed to quit, and people would ask why. And he was like, well, if you look at this video, it's over 40 minutes long. I don't have 40 minutes to speak to every single person. Right. So I'm just telling them it's too stressful for me or whatever. Yeah. But overall, his soul knew he couldn't keep going. Right. Because he understood the nature of our healthcare system, and that a lot of these things are Band-Aids. Granted, it would be cool, like, if most of society was very healthy, but something happens and you do need like actual surgery. Sure. I mean, I think this, for my Achilles, I believe it was the better route to take, because I think the
only route you could have taken, like surgery is necessary sometimes. Like, there is nothing wrong with the medical world. Right. It's just knowing, like you're saying, like knowing when to use it and knowing that it's a piece of the whole system. And so it's like, if you've got a torn Achilles, like you've got to go get that repaired. It's not just going to like magically fuse itself back together.
Well, it's interesting because I did speak to a surgeon that recommended non-intervention.
So it wasn't a full tear. It wasn't a full separation.
Oh, it was a full tear.
Really?
Yeah.
And he recommended it not be
non-operative. He said that it could repair just fine. Yeah. I told Ryan and Cena's that I felt there was a partial rupture for years. Like there's maybe some affliction within the tendon for a long time, and it finally just kicked the bucket. Yeah. And he said, especially because of that, it's great that you got surgery. Yeah. Which I don't really know why, but maybe it's because
scar tissue.
Yeah. Yeah. So
if it's been torn for a long time, then the body already started forming scar tissue around that area, and the scar tissue is not going to refuse with itself. So that probably was like a key thing.
That makes sense. So yeah, I'm grateful for. So yeah, we were discussing like
the mind connection to the body and like emotions. Yeah, but it's also like incorporating the soul component, like the soul and spirit component of things. Like people's auras can tell you a lot, and we see this as like some woo woo, witchy work, and it's not. It's just real. Like it's been studied for ages, and I'm not big on history, so I don't know when the first person said I could start seeing any of that, but it's just like sometimes it's being brave enough to go into those areas, just being like, oh no, I see this thing, and it's directing us this direction. And there was a few weeks ago, somebody new was coming in to see me, and it was just going to be like that one time, because then he doesn't live in town, so he booked 2 hours with me, and we were doing an assessment. He was telling me how he was having like thyroid stuff and like cold hands, cold feet, and like really bad digestive issues. But if you looked at him, he was a surfer, like fit, everything generally pretty good. His breathing pattern was actually good, which is very rare to see. But I was staring at him, and I was like, you've got like there was like a yellow aura, whatever, floating around his belly.
And you can see that color.
Yeah. You've got purple around your head right now.
Yeah, I think you told me last time I had green. Yeah. Purple, what is that? Well, let's stick to the. Yeah. We'll get into that after.
Yeah. But. And so it was just, and it looked like it had a face on it, kind of. And I looked at him, and I was just like, do you know who Teal Swan is?
No.
She's like a big in the spiritual world of things. I'm a so-so fan. but he had went to one of her retreats. So I knew he would be open to me like talking about this. Because some people I'm like, oh shit, like they're not going to like this. But I told him, I was like, there's like this yellow ball, like looks like a face, like right in front of your stomach, and it won't go away. And it's been there the whole time we've been assessing it. And so I'm like, I think we have to look at your digestive system. He was having I think he was having wrist and shoulder pain, and nothing really was weak physically on him. Like I did a bunch of tests and I was like, I think this is your digestive issues causing all of this pain. And he's like a long-term vegetarian / pescatarian. And I was like, you have to start incorporating some sort of animal products back into your life. I was like, you're starving your thyroid. And so we went on this whole thing. And I was like, look, I'm not an energy expert of sorts. I could just tell you what I feel and what I feel like that is telling us. And so I was like, I think that it's your digestive system that we have to focus on. It's almost like there's like an entity there just being like, look here, you know, like look, this is a thing. So yeah, I think everybody has these abilities. Yeah. You just have to not care. And like I've had people's like 3 different experience where people's dead family members, or like one was an ex-wife, came into session and was like that, like said a thing, and I was like, well, this person says, and it was weird, but then like it gave them all the answers that they needed. And I'm not like a medium, like I don't consider myself any of those things. I'm just open.
Yeah, so I've heard that exact. So it's funny that you conclude with that, because I've been told the same thing, that I'm open, and I've had different experiences where I feel like, especially through plant medicine, ayahuasca sessions, that I'm channeling something, or like something is going through me, and I am a vessel for a different piece of consciousness, entity, whatever you want to call it. And then it's also, I believe it's happened outside of plant medicine as well. And it's been happening probably most of my life. And I just didn't know it.
Yep.
And it's funny because, I mean, I won't, just for the sake of privacy, I won't say who it was, but someone that is blood related to me, like felt the same thing. And recently talked to me about it. And it sparked chills, because I was like, that feels like truth bumps to me, you know, like that feels right to me. And I did some coaching work with, I don't really even know how, I don't like to label anybody anything. I could just go on her Instagram and see how she classifies her skills in her practice, like her practice. But she does have this ability to see people's auras, and she said the same thing. She's like, I don't think I'm a medium, but I do have the ability to, like, at certain times, have the ability to receive messages from, it could be your ancestors. And one of our last sessions together, she said, it feels like this is like a grandfather of yours, or great grandfather. And they're saying that we wish you could see how much you're loved. And also, the work that you're doing, no one else in your family line has done anything like this.
Yeah.
And I didn't cry, but I was very close to crying.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that I've worked on, and I'm reading this book, and it talks about how you get all these, like, you know, academic accomplishments, and you're rewarded with a degree, and like you take pictures for all these things, but you're not necessarily rewarded for the emotional journeys and accomplishments that you go through.
Right.
Letting go of grief that you've held on forever, or going through a 3-hour sweat lodge and doing ayahuasca retreats to plunge into the depths of your own being, and to figure out what you need to figure out, see what you need to see, feel what you need to feel. And no one congratulates. Someone that, you know, I love dearly, she was worried for me. And she was like, what are you fucking doing? And I was on the other, like on the total opposite spectrum. Like, I feel so proud of myself for doing this. And so unfortunately, it's just because of a lack of perspective, and traditional Western American society looks at some of these alternative medicines as extremely dangerous. So just, I am intuitively attracted to, I believe that people can be mediums. I do believe that. I think people can channel certain things. I think the spirit is eternal and that we live each life with a special maybe duty or
like a purpose.
Yeah. And so I I'm not the type of person that like shies away. And I think you knew that. I mean, you kind of talked about that during our sessions, but some other people are. They think it's like fucking crazy.
Yeah. It's cool.
That's totally fine.
They can think that because they might not ever experience it or are afraid of it. Like I think a lot of people are afraid of this kind of stuff because you can't touch it, like it's not tangibly there.
And you can't logically with reason try to understand what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
It's just like
one of my favorite things though, what I do with people when I work with tuning forks. And so like I have a chakra tuning fork set where each tuning fork is set to the frequency of each chakra. And I learned how you can open and close and add energy and all the kind of things. And you use frequency to do that. So you use a pendulum to test each chakra and just see where it's at and if it's going in the right direction and those things. And so usually like somebody's laying down and I kind of go, okay, like, so the root chakra is showing up as like closed or shut down or needing energy. And so instead of using the fork to open that up for you, because it will only be temporary, what's there for you? And so sometimes I'll already know, or like because we've talked about it, or like I have an intuitive knowing. And so we kind of go into that area. And so what happens when emotions get stuck in our body and inhibit certain systems, but whether it be organs or muscles or anything, but we're testing the energy of that. So when it inhibits the energy of the area, it's because that person hasn't felt something all the way through. They are shoving it down. They're like, I was angry and, I never felt that or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I get them to talk about it and actually experience the feeling. I was like, okay, well, what would it be like to have that emotional experience? And you don't have to scream and cry or be dramatic. Like you
talk
just
through it.
Just kind of let it be present, let it be known, and treat it like a 2-year-old that needs your attention. The 2-year-old's not going to go away until you look at it and be like, what do you need? And then I retest it with the pendulum and then it's open and fine. I'm like, see, you do this yourself all the time. You just have to feel. Like you have to be in that experience, being a thinking, feeling being. But people forget that they have to emotionally process things. And instead they apply logic to it. They're like, oh, well, when I was 10, my parents beat me. And so then I suppressed the feeling and they tell a story and they keep repeating that story over and over again. I'm like, but you've never actually felt that. So it will never go away. It will still live in your body and you'll continue to repeat that story like it is your lifeline. Because some people just tell the same stories, like same trauma stories over and over and over again. I'm like, it's time to stop telling that story. Like it's time to stop telling your story as in I healed this trauma and now I am me. It's like, but what about the good stuff? Like what about the things that bring you joy? And what about the you as you are in this seat, in this moment, instead of your trauma story? But people love trauma porn.
Yeah. And I'm probably one of the, I think maybe all of us are in a way.
Yeah.
I do all the editing for my podcast. I pretty much do all the clips and everything. So I'm able to like observe things. And over time I was like, man, I'm really just fucking repeating my trauma story.
Yeah.
And it was a way to like connect with people, but I'm like, I'm fucking sick of this.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm done with I don't want to. So what do I need to do to relieve it and just move on and progress forward and I mean I've seen it through different people. You can totally witness it and it's interesting because like before when you're younger like you're not aware of that and then once you're like opened up to that, when you understand that a lot of people typically will repeat stories that they told themselves at a younger age, it's like you can't unsee it and people you want to be able to help them, but at least for me, like you just kind of
gotta let them be.
Yep.
Because they're telling the story to get someone else's emotional response to it, to cover up them from for not being able to feel it. And so there's a difference between being like, this thing happened and it really fucking sucked, but like, and next. There's that. And then there's the long drawn out, oh my goodness, this, and there's still so much emotion connected to that. And I really think that's because like it's not fully emotionally felt through yet. And we just have to keep processing it over and over verbally until we're ready to feel it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to dive more into your journey with the Chek Institute, and just kind of like understanding it more in depth. So it does seem like a comprehensive. You said energy medicine, but also looks towards nutrition.
Mental emotional wellness, like talk about spirit and soul a lot. Like the final teaching of the institute is to let go of all the information that you learned and feel. Like level 5 is all about spirit and all about feeling, like all about connecting to your soul to get the information you need. Because when you can do that, you don't generally need all the fancy tools anymore. They'll say that you do, but you don't. And they're good to have around, because sometimes you do need that stuff. Like I like to joke about it, but sometimes you can watch someone walk through the door. It's like, oh my God, I know what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to spend an hour doing assessing just to reconfirm this information.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's necessary, but sometimes you just like, it's like, oh, okay, come here. Like we're going to figure this out. Like I know your abs aren't working. Like I know you're not breathing well. And that's always step 1. Get people breathing well and get people's core turned back on. And then their body starts to, it starts to heal very quickly. But most people need to talk about nutrition these days. Like most people don't drink enough water.
Well, I mean, we were just going through. I wanted to get some coffee. I mean, I've been abstaining from it the past couple of days, but here and there, I'm cool with caffeinating. And all the coffees in there were pretty trash. So I got some yerba mate that was organic, but that's just like one example of like, if you were to follow us on this path to find the coffee in the water section, I mean, it's just trash.
All of it.
All trash. And I actually just read a book called Fiat Food.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's called, people will maybe, I've had people laugh at me when I describe it, but it's called Fiat Food, How Inflation has, I think it's like how inflation has changed America's health and how Bitcoin fixes it.
Okay.
And it's a fascinating book, and it provides details as to how the workings of government, corporate institutions, medical, pharmaceutical, and our academic, all these different sectors in society have essentially, because it wasn't just this ignorant evolution of like, oh, like we just didn't know. Like, no, we knew. There is evidence of people working for different nutritional institutions that obfuscated data on purpose for their own ego's sake. That has led to obesity and tons of ingredients in our foods. And so the book just describes all of this, and going back to like 1940, talking about how our monetary system has changed, US dollar being backed by gold. And then Richard Nixon stopped that in 1971. And there's a website called whatthefuckhappened1971.com. And it's not just like prices that, the chart goes way up and skyrockets. It's domestic abuse. It's divorces. It's so it's like when we made this slight change of our monetary system, which I believe is very unethical what we're doing. We're literally just creating money out of thin air, which is an invisible tax on people. It has drastically shifted everybody, like all of society, in a really unfortunate direction. And so I mean, I've been passionate about Bitcoin and our money system and how it's linked to our food system. And that book describes how we subsidize like 3 major food products. So I think it was like corn, maybe soy, and
coffee,
maybe coffee. I thought it was one other, wheat, maybe.
Probably.
And then we just like hammered it down as that being the the bottom of the food pyramid, the standard
bottom of the food pyramid.
the standard dietary guidelines, and then like meat was shunned. Eggs were kind of shunned as well, and it's gotten worse and worse. I mean,
it's in seed oil starting to be a thing.
For sure. I mean, and I've heard like not all seed oils are bad. It's like the industrial, ultra processed, seed oils, but you can have like what is it? Black. I think it was a black seed oil, and but even some olive oils aren't great. Like I've made things very simple. Like I eat a decent amount of red meat, eggs, kimchi, fermented vegetables, sweet potatoes, some fruit sometimes, and dairy, raw milk. And then what I cook in is ghee and animal fats.
Yep.
I have some olive oil, and I don't even really use that anymore. I like use it to keep my cast iron pan, from rusting.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and I think I'm gonna start doing like. Sorry, I'm like totally just letting the flow of consciousness keep going. But I might start making my own bone broth because you can use those bones over and over and over and over again. I remember I read something in that book that I was just referring to that you could like there was European families from, I don't know if it was the Middle Ages, but they were poor European families in the cold of winter that would just reuse a couple bones for the whole winter. And they would just make bone broth, and that's how they survived. And I didn't realize that you could just keep reusing the bones. So I was like, and then you can render the fat off of it and use that to cook. And like essentially, I've been just doing bone broth with an egg just to kind of in the morning, just to just kind of calm the nervous system down a little bit. But anyways, that was a huge brain dump.
That was fun. That was fun. Like nutrition's cool because it does need to be more simple. And the fun thing, like we're talking about seed oils, it's the polyunsaturated fatty acids. That's the issue. Like we can talk about all the chemicals and yada yada, but like at the foundation, the polyunsaturated fatty acids, they inhibit the uptake of glucose in our system. So when eaten in high amounts, and so that can inhibit our thyroid function.
Okay.
And the cool thing about saturated fats is they bypass the liver and go straight into the lymphatic system to be processed and dispersed throughout the body as energy. And polyunsaturated fats can get stored for later use. And so that's usually more highly likely that we build up fat around our organ tissues, especially when we start eating too much of them. So there's those stark differences between how well we process them. The medium chain fatty acids, the saturated fats, they are double bonded. I think I'm saying that right. I'm trying to remember like chemistry brain stuff here, but they're easily digestible. Versus polyunsaturated fats are not as easily digestible by the body.
Oh, gotcha.
They have to go through the more processes in order to be used as energy.
Okay. So there's a spike in glucose from the polyunsat. You said inhibits glucose.
The uptake of glucose. So that means it inhibits the usage of energy from those fats.
Inhibits the usage of energy from the
Versus saturated fats can be used almost immediately as energy by the body.
Gotcha. And then I heard
if people are a little low on energy, they can take a little bit of coconut oil.
Yeah.
And then they'll be good to go.
Okay. And then I also heard there's some oxidative stress.
So oxidative stress happens that's when people talk about not cooking with olive oil is because it oxidates at high heat. So you should only ever eat it cold. And a lot of the seed oils, they oxidate at heat.
Yeah.
And so that's, oxidative stress in the system.
Okay. Yeah, nutrition's an important part of all of this. I was reading through the book that Paul Chek's book, and I know he's got a couple, but what was the name of the one that?
How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And he listed 6 types of stressors, how they can be good and bad. And I think it was like physical, chemical, electromagnetic, psychic, and mental, which is like one. Nutritional. What's the last one?
I think it's hermetic stress, but I forget the exact definition.
I don't know if it was hermetic
stress. I think that's something to do with mental, emotional stuff, but I think you're covering it because
there's 5.
There's chemical,
6.
Nutritional, mental, emotional, exercise, movement.
Yeah,
there's lack of sleep.
Oh, well, I think
that could be, and then there's EMFs.
Okay, well we got So, I mean, right now people are not intentional, and I think it's getting better. I think people are starting to realize that
people are getting better for sure. I mean, if you look around Austin, people are getting so much better.
Yeah,
and it's like I just created like a year-long package for myself, and like part of that package is going to people's homes and cleaning out their pantries. and educating them and just
Oh
being like, look,
wow.
like this is why this is happening with your body. And like, look at these ingredients. And like, this is like just on things that people don't think about.
Wow, I'd love to hire you for
Done.
that for
Yeah.
my family back in Charlton,
Mhm.
Massachusetts.
Yeah. We could do it over FaceTime. Just
Yeah.
like take me to your pantry.
Well, I mean, yeah, they've got a decent sized one. But even just like, I mean, for other friends and family overall, like
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I mean,
So
that's
important,
yeah.
you know? And so I've done that maybe like once or twice with people in the past, but I've never really offered it as a thing. But like I put together because I was like, this is for people who, you know, have some money that they can pay and who want to commit to like a full year
Yeah.
of really like being like, okay, I'm going to do this, because you can change your whole life around in a year. Like
Yeah.
you can heal so many things. So I think part of that is the education purpose or is the education process of like going over and be like, look at this thing. Like kind of like what we did at the little grocery thing. It's like, but look at this. Like this has got natural flavors, which is basically just chemical shitstorm that they don't have to tell you about. You know, like there is, what is it? Citric acid is usually made from black mold. And so nobody knows that, but citric acid is a preservative. It's not from fruit. That's in lots of different foods.
Wow.
So it's like people don't think about this stuff. Like our pantry should be really simple.
Yeah.
So, and most of the time people have got all kinds of snacks stored in there that I'm just like, this is trashing your health.
Yeah, I sometimes
hands down.
I sometimes feel like a crazy person because my fridge is like looks like it's empty sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like eggs and meat.
Oh, my fridge is always a disaster because I've got cheese and the
Yeah.
eggs and the butters and then all the things. And then I
Yeah.
forget about things. So things live in the back of the fridge for a second.
Oh.
And but it's like raw carrot salads, you know, like things like that can change people's digestive and hormonal system around so quickly. And people don't know that.
Yeah.
Because like they have anti-estrogen components and like they're very anti-inflammatory and they're high in enzymes. And you cut them a particular way, you mix them with apple cider vinegar and it helps with digestion.
Yeah.
So just like making little things known, because nutrition has to be really, really simple. But people overthink nutrition all the time because of the world. There has to be thousands of nutrition books out there. All of them with science claiming I'm right, I know these studies, this. I'm just like, my number one thing that I tell people who come to me who are vegan, vegetarian, who are like, we're not meant to eat meat. I'm like, oh yeah? Let's look at the hydrochloric acid that's in your stomach that can burn through this floor. I was like, that is to digest meat. And it goes away when you start eating only plants and you stop eating animal protein. It goes down drastically. And that's what pulls out a lot of our vitamins and nutrients in our body from our food. And if we're not producing hydrochloric acid, that's when we get parasite infections, when we get bacterial infections. It's what's meant to kill all the things. Like we used to eat raw meat way, way, way back when.
Yeah.
And that's why we have hydrochloric acid in our stomach, to make sure we don't die from parasites.
And I'll just say from experience, eliminating a lot of stuff and just going on a carnivore diet for it's not fully carnivore, but mainly carnivore.
Yeah.
I feel great.
Yeah.
I feel really good.
Right. And I love that because I think it's very different, men versus women. It's very different exercise routine wise. Like I don't think people should be full out carnivore. Maybe for a short period of time, it can really heal people.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too.
Yeah. But it's a fast, like when we start really looking at foods, like I love to just teach people how to feel. And I tell people take all the bullshit out of your diet and then just like go on a rotation diet. Like Monday is your beef and white rice day. That's it. Period. See how you feel. See how you poop. See what your sleep's like. You know, see what your hormones are like. And then like next day you got your chicken and your, you know, maybe apples and like see how you feel. And like really getting people in touch with themselves, because most people have no idea how food is affecting them. And they become human garbage disposals.
Yeah.
And they don't know. And so most people are more ignorant than stubborn, and they just have no idea, and they have to feel it to believe it.
Yeah. Since I've been in Austin, it's been mainly an egg and steak diet, but also I'll do white rice, sweet potato fries, and Greek yogurt, fruit, some vegetables here and there, honey, raw honey. And it's just, it's improved my overall health dramatically.
Yeah.
But there are certain moments where I'll miss doing like a cold salad, just like carrots, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, whatever. But so we've covered a good amount. I wanted to get into something that I'm always curious about is people's. There's a quote that I received from a friend of mine, and
Mm,
I love how he framed it. He said, I don't know if I have it on this on my phone here. Um, the paradoxical knowing is that you are it when it comes to spirituality.
mhm.
Um, and there's obviously Christianity, there's Buddhism, there's Judaism, different religions around the world. Christianity seems to be the more well known or more dominant in modern uh, society.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just curious because I've been in this explorative phase, and that was hyper driven by doing ayahuasca. Um, and you're really just getting shot into a different, what it seems like, realm, or a
Yeah.
different yeah, just a total paradigm shifting perspective
Mm,
of the human experience. And so you've told me you've done ayahuasca and maybe some other plant medicines before, and I'm just curious as to um your experiences, how they've shifted your perspective, changed you as a human being,
mm.
and what are your intuitive understandings of like how the universe is the way it is.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
always curious to hear people's different perspectives because I think I've listened to hundreds of Joe Rogan episodes, and he has a lot of those types of conversations,
Mm,
and I've just heard so many people explain their theories or understandings, and every single one is so unique,
yeah.
and it's beautiful to hear those things.
Mm.
So
I love that. What's coming to me is that like everyone needs like a good MDMA ceremony after every each ayahuasca ceremony.
yeah,
Like
okay,
cuz people forget how to play. I think everyone takes life way too
I agree.
seriously
Yeah,
these days, and just especially when people start getting in the spiritual realm of things, their shoulders creep up to their ears and they get this like spiritual superiority shirt on,
yep,
and it's like, oh, I just want to shove some fun drugs down your throat. Like, when was the last time you had sex and enjoyed food and like smoked some weed and just freaking laughed for
yeah,
hours? Like, I really think like that is what's missing from the world of spirituality.
hmm,
Like, my ayahuasca ceremonies were all like really amazing. Like, I think I've done like 7 or 8 of them, something like that, and it's just like they all had a purpose. Like, they all had the like, ooh, I need something to just like smack me out of where I am in
yeah,
this moment. And so I did, like, I think all of them, yeah, all of them. I was really kind of just like in this dark place of like trying to heal from an abusive relationship,
hmm,
and just like going in there to just like find myself again, like just needing something to just be like, okay, this is like, you're doing the thing, like everything's cool.
hmm,
And so I had a lot of cool experiences in them. And at the end of the day, like my wanting to do it my way approach like doesn't work for those things, because then they're like, oh, you can't leave circle until we close. I'm like, damn it, I just want to go in my
hmm,
tent and have my own
yeah,
experience. So I always laughed at myself because it just like every time I did ceremony, it taught me how to just like let go and just be like, I'm not allowed to go anywhere right now.
hmm,
Like, you've chosen to be here, you've paid to be here, so you're just gonna be here.
hmm,
So, like, there was a lot of just, like, letting go for me of just like, "Okay, this right now is not gonna be your way, and that's okay."
mm,
So they were all really beautiful, and, like, I think I'm done with ayahuasca for a little while because 'cause I'm just like, it gets so serious, like,
yeah,
it gets so, so serious, and, you're just there, and then you just depend on these big visions to have, when I'm just like, "What about the last time you had, like, a cervical orgasm and you felt God?"
mm,
Like, and enjoyed yourself through laughing with friends, like, so I think it's a really valuable medicine, and
hmm,
there will probably be a time where I'm being called to it again, and, like, right now,
sure,
like, I just did, what did we do for my level 5 class? It was, Chenga. I think I'm saying it right. And so it's the more feminine version of 5-MeO DMT.
okay,
And that was amazing. That was so beautiful. Like, you're just laying there, and like 5-MeO DMT is like 1, 2, 3 God. And like I
yeah,
experienced that of like I felt like I was having a seizure and giving birth at the same time.
Yeah, it sounds very
Really
intense, and
super
it kind of
intense.
shakens me a little bit when I
Yeah.
hear about it.
I encourage you to do it because if you've done ayahuasca, you can handle DMT. But it's intense. But like Chenga was just this like nice, like, oh, you're gonna be on this cloud for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And I think each of those experiences, like the medicine has its own consciousness. So everyone has such different experiences because the medicine is going to show them what it needs to show them based
Mm-hmm.
on the consciousness that they're at and based off of the like the spirit of the medicine.
Mm.
So like I did a lot of mom healing stuff in that. I saw a lot of like our connections and it was just like really like, oh, this is so nice.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my most favorite drug experiences, medicine experiences, whatever we want to call it, like it was one of my friend's birthday parties and we rented out the same year that we had a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 8 or 9 of us. And we did MDMA and mushrooms together.
Mm.
And it was amazing. Like she had everyone dress up like their favorite animal. And so I painted myself like a sunflower. Like I put on like this gold leotard and I painted my face like brown and with yellow and it was amazing. And so like the energy of that night, like we danced and we sang and we cried and we're just like everybody was so free and so like in their animal nature. And I think that's what everyone is missing and what everyone is unconsciously seeking of like, what would it be like to be in the true balance of being a human and an animal at the same time? And we miss out on that through all this like properness and throughout all this like these cultural norms and the like, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. And if you're a lady, you can't do this.
Right.
And there's so many rules and they have their time and place. They do. And then I think we forget to play. So I was coming out of this really dark moment when I did that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, I have found myself again. I was like, here I am. Like, this is love and this is who I am. And I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
And it all depends on the person. You know, like I've had tons of beautiful mushroom experiences and some people have really dark experiences with mushrooms and they're like, oh, I had a bad trip. I'm like, no. Like you've been ignoring yourself. And so that way, and the mushrooms force you to face yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was uncomfortable, but I don't think this was considered bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think spirituality is learning how to reconnect with our animal nature.
Yeah.
Like how to trust ourselves and trust the universe. Like I think that, what is it? Our intuition always leads us to a place of our highest good, not to comfort. And knowing that, I think, is really true and it stands true no matter what. And kind of like what we said earlier, like when we start to see the truth of things, our world gets smaller because there's a lot of people who might not ever do that in this life. And knowing that it's okay. They don't have to. Like your family might never get healthy. And like, it's cool. You can still love them and observe them and be around them. And you just accept them for the choices that they're making until they ask. And that's my experience with it all. Like really learning how to play again and not like everyone has to play the same way. And it's just like knowing what that's like within yourself and not forgetting who you are, like not selling out for money and not prostituting your energy just because you think you have to or you're trying to please other people.
Right.
And there's a lot of fake people. And there's a lot of fake people in the world of spirituality. And there's a lot of fake people in the world of like healing and plant medicines. And I don't like it. Like you can taste it. You can taste it when you're around them. And it's like, oh, like I don't get it. And sometimes like I'm sitting there being like, does anyone else see this? Like
or feel it.
Yeah. And sometimes they don't. And that's okay.
Yeah. I read, I definitely. So to continue, to have you keep going, what is your, try to be more specific with my question.
Yeah.
What is your understanding and experience with the phenomena of God or universe or something higher than ourselves?
Yeah. Oh, how do I describe that?
Because it feels like when you're taking these substances, whether it's MDMA, whether it's, I mean, ayahuasca is just crazy to me because it's just 2 plants typically. And the fact that we combine the two to have this unreal, infallible experience, it does feel like it's almost like a sacrament, like a true sacrament in a way.
Well, it's its own spirit. Like you're taking a spirit of a plant that's here with these properties for a reason. And like shamans and herbalists, they all say like the plants talk to them, and that's how they learn about the plants. Like any good herbalist will tell you, well, that plant told me like this was its properties.
Yeah.
And like experience of God, like I found it in dance, you know, like it's way more than plant medicines for me. And I think that's part of it all. It's like sex brings us there, dance brings us there, laughing brings us there, like anything that puts us right here. I think these type of conversations bring us there because like anything that forces you to just be super, super present and let go of anything else happening, it puts you there. And so like playing with animals can do that. Like giving birth does that, playing, like watching children. And so I really think it's like feeling this spirit moving you is maybe the best way I can describe my experience of God or the universe. Like this knowing that like, okay, this is cool. But I almost think like there are no words that are appropriate enough for it. It's like this felt sense. Like I love to talk to women about orgasms and men too, but I you know, I don't have that felt sense as a man. So I talk less about that because I like to talk about things that I have experienced. But there's lots of women who can't orgasm or who can't have cervical orgasms. And I'm just like, but you have to open, like you have to completely let go and just like, and be present in the moment and not worry about what your face looks like and not worry about what this and not worry about judging and like all the stories. And because I think that is like God, because in that moment, there are no words. There are no, like when a woman is having a proper orgasm, she cannot speak. And if she can speak, then she's not having an orgasm. So it's like our sexual experiences, I think, bring us closer to that because it puts us present. Like it puts us in our bodies and in ourselves so completely that we have to ignore everything else. We have no other option.
Right.
And I think that's the best way I think can describe that. And like I think dancing does that too. Like I love to dance, and just when you just let the music move you and just not care and not have any judgment of yourself, and you just get so present where you are no longer doing the moving, that might be like universe. That's, you know, all moving us.
Yeah, it's like flow state. It's like what brings you flow state. Some people, I had a friend that said the mountains or the woods are his form of church.
Oh, yeah.
And surfers might look at the waves and being perfectly in that, you know, funnel of the wave.
Yeah. I used to be a marathon runner. Like it was there during that. Like there's times where like you just have you can't feel anything. Like you are just like there and focused and everything is, you know, nothing around you.
Right.
Like my first marathon was easy because I was just in it and going and moving and going and going. And then it was done. And I was like, holy shit. Like that was amazing.
Yeah.
So
I guess I'll also, so I mean, I don't know, we're doing pretty good for time. But I've begun to believe, and there's an interesting, so I recently watched a podcast, Joe Rogan, Sebastian Younger, I think his last name is. Very recent podcast that he published, and Sebastian Younger talks about this near-death experience that he has, and the near-death experience that he had, he saw his father, and his father was like essentially almost like welcoming, like, okay, your time is done.
Right.
And Sebastian was like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
But it was a very like vivid, where is this going? And he still claims to be an atheist. And man, his ability to describe the fundamental process of believing was very interesting. He said, like, you can't force yourself to believe something.
True.
And I forgot the example that he said. I think it was like I forgot, man. He was so, it was very impactful how he mentioned it, but essentially like you can't force yourself to believe in something. And he has such a profound respect for specific religions, and none of those religions have really been they haven't impacted him in a way that he is like, oh, I believe in God. Whereas I've met other people in Christianity and the belief in and lessons from the Bible of Christianity deeply resonated with them, and they were just like, and you can feel it from them, the energy that they present as a human being. You can feel it, like there's no doubt about it that they feel that,
right?
And I believe what I've felt to be true, based off of conversations and certain experiences, is that the spirit is eternal, and that would make me somewhat presume that karma is a real thing. But I've heard other people say, like, there's no proof of karma, like, you really there's no proof of it, right? But but yeah, so like this to kind of get to the where I'm stirring up in my mind now is that there does seem to be like spirits in a certain realm or dimension or whatever. I've had a friend tell me that they had a deceased friend that had a very unique characteristic, and she went to 3 different mediums, and those 3 mediums all displayed that unique characteristic on the spot, on the dot.
That's cool.
And
super cool.
Yeah. So, and then there's a book that also I haven't read, but a friend of mine told me about it, how this elderly man who had a family, he died, and supposedly his spirit went in, like our spirits just go on to the next life. And supposedly this guy that was writing the book, he was like a therapist for people to like tap into like potential past lives. And when this elderly man died, his spirit went into another person, and the person that inhabited that spirit of the elderly man was going to this therapist, and the therapist was able to extract, or at least not extract, but like furnish the memory of his past lives, family members. And those family members were still alive. So the young man or whoever, the young man found those past live family members. And was able to like furnish memories of their father and specific things, and like find those people. That's what like makes me think like that there has to be something there. That was really fascinating.
That's fascinating.
So anyways, I wanted to hear your thoughts and like just what you think about whether it be karma, whether it be the spirit being eternal, or if is it that once we die, it's just we're done. You know,
I don't believe that.
I don't believe in that.
I don't think so.
Is that a great?
I've had way too many spirit interactions to have that belief. Like I was thinking about before class each day, my last Chek class, we would do a drum circle, and so some of us had I want to call them maracas, but I think we call them something different, but whatever.
Shakers.
Yeah. And then some people would play the drums, and we would all, and it was just this focused, led circle. And it was, the energy of it was amazing. And so there was one day where I started to hear this hum, 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 like someone like humming this really low hum in the background, and nobody was humming. And so I heard it, and then I was like, okay. And we all had our eyes closed. And so then at the end, Paul goes, was anybody singing during that circle? And we're like, no. And he's like, did you guys hear like the spirits and we're like, yeah, like, because he's like, I opened my eyes to look and see if anyone was singing, and nobody was singing. And like, and I get chills like thinking about it, because it was like
wild,
this palpable sense that spirits come in to help or to participate or to play or whatever they're doing. And it's so real in that, like, to me, I'm like, I don't care if anyone else thinks it's real or not, because I know what I experienced in that moment, and it was cool. It was really, really cool. I have it on recording in my brain forever. And I've had experience, like I said before, with clients where their deceased, whoever it was, like came in, and like I was like, oh, well, they said this, and I just kind of felt it. And so it's like I've had undeniable moments where I'm just like, okay, Like, this is real. I don't know if past lives are real or not. I have some part of me thinks that that's not real, and we just have different timelines of things going on. And I don't think we come back and continuously repeat things over and over again. Like, if we came in with all the trauma of our past lives, we would be so fucking weighed down. We wouldn't be able to stand, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But that's just kind of what's in my brain about that piece of things. But it's like, I think that we do continue, like our spirit, our soul continues for forever.
Yeah.
It's like, if anyone wants their mind blown and to never understand anything after they read a book, like read the Red Book, like Carl Jung's Red Book. Like it's kooky. And
I'll remember that.
Oh my God. Listen to it. Cause if you read it, you might like just start drooling. I'm listening to it sometimes. I'm like, what the hell is he saying? Because it's so out there and it's so like, but he's having conversations with his soul and he's doing active imagination. And like part of what we learned was to talk to the spirit in tarot cards and have active imagination and go in and experience that soul. And it all sounds weird as, anything else, but it's just like, I don't know. It's all real, like why not? Like why not have that experience?
Yeah.
And so I do think our souls go on for forever. I have no idea what happens when we die.
Right.
And I know there's certain planes, astral plane, ethereal plane, yada yada. And like I've heard Paul tell stories about his astral traveling, and he's astral traveled to the moon and stuff like, and he's won like awards for his astral travel. Like they used to do, he's done competitions before to like see things. Yeah. And he's won all the competitions.
How do you win the competition?
Well, you see the thing, like somebody else knows what you're trying to see and they go find X, and then you travel to that spot and you find it. For
an example, like what did he have to find?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah. I just know that he's like won these competitions basically. Or yeah. So I'm like, I know that is true. Like because I just feel it. And since I've had such spiritual experiences with different spirits, and like I have a friend who we play with this kind of stuff together. And we did one thing where we tried to like pull up the whole aura of the body and see, what we saw. And you do this one exercise where you have someone stand against a white wall and you have them move really fast and you kind of see what's left. And so for her, I saw a person standing behind her and I was looking at her. She's standing on a white wall. I'm staring at her. I was like, oh, and it was this blue like person leveled up. I was like, Layla. I was like, there's someone standing behind you right now.
Layla?
Yeah, her name's Layla. And
I might know who this is.
Layla Harper. She's in the fitness world.
I think I know who that is.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That'd be awesome if you know her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the one who originally hired me for Dan's studio. She used to work there. So we've been friends for like 10 plus years. And so we're doing this exercise and I looked and I kept watching and it was moving and it started moving. I'm like, now it's in front of, and the minute I said it's in front of you, she's like, oh, I'm getting a hug right now. And I was like, oh, and she's like, it's my Nana. She's like, my Nana's always checking in, like in and out around me. And I was just like, uh-huh. And so I was just watching, this spirit move around her.
Yeah.
And then she's like, it's gone now, isn't it? I was like, yeah. And so it was super cool. And
yeah,
like I think we do have spirit guides. Like we have spirits all around us at every single moment helping us. And I've got a friend who does this kind of stuff too. And she told me last time she was in for a session, she's like, yeah, you've got a bunch of your spirits like up here. They're just like clapping for you right now. Like they're really proud of what you're doing. And I'm just like, that's cool. And for me, I'm just like, why not? Why not make it real? Like, why not just accept it? Because I think when we allow ourselves to be open and just be open to whatever, anything changing at any moment, anything being any particular way, then we can really see things and feel things. It's why muscle testing works. Like our body doesn't lie. It's why like we're using a pendulum works and, just reading energy. And I think when we do apply logic to it and we're just like, oh, well, duh, like everything is energy.
Yeah.
And so why can't something read energy?
Yeah.
They've been using dowsing rods for forever to find water. How do those things find water? You know what dowsing rods are? They're just like, you can hold the handle and then it comes up and goes straight forward and it's just metal. I think they're usually copper and you hold them like this, one in each hand, and they're going whoo, 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 and they're like kind of going like windshield wipers, and then they go when they find water, and then they stay.
Oh wow.
And so like they've been using dowsing rods to find water for a long time, and I'm like, how do those work without energy?
Yeah.
So I think we've been utilizing energy and spirit and intuition for forever.
Yeah.
And since we have technology now and we have logicized ourselves into our ego and been stuck in that place, we've just diminished it. Because if everybody knew they had a soul, and if everyone knew they had all the power to have the greatest life they ever wanted, ever, then the government wouldn't exist. Like we wouldn't have power structures. Like we probably wouldn't have, the same structure we have now. For sure not. People wouldn't do jobs that they hate.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think the government we would have maybe some power structures to establish some type of order,
right,
in a way, but not
exist differently.
Yes.
Not the controlling government that we have
right
currently.
now. It's way out of hand.
Yeah.
In my view. If you're awake to what's actually going on.
Yeah.
It's
insanity.
It's super insane. And that's why I sometimes get frustrated with like going back to that malaise, that ball of emotion. I'm like, dude, it just feels like people don't realize what is happening.
Yeah.
And it's like
Some of them don't. Some of them don't. And you can't force them.
Right.
Like how I do it, because I understand the malaise. Like I have so much information in my brain about all the things. Yeah. And so you get it. And it's like, but if you let that weigh you down all the time, then they win.
Right.
And so that's why the animal nature, like, it's like, okay, well, we know this thing. And then now what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
Like you vote with your dollar all the time, no matter what. So it's like, just support the food that you want, support the education that you want, the water that you want, and even down to the clothes that we wear. Like, and then that's the best we can do.
Yeah.
The best we could do.
Yeah. I feel like you would absolutely be an enthusiast of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And what we always say to people that are new to the space is like, don't trust us, verify for yourself, do your own research. But I could totally see you being like, oh shit.
Yeah. I was told I should make one of my chickens into a Bitcoin. There's like some
into
sort of
a Bitcoin?
Yeah, there's this guy was talking about how there's some sort of like funny coin thing where you can make money off of making people laugh. I was like, what?
Yeah, so that's the thing too, is that there's a whole plethora of like snake oil stuff. So just I have done a certain amount of research to be under the impression that all of that, I wouldn't even say almost, I would redact the word almost. I say all of it is bullshit, and Bitcoin is the one form of digital cryptocurrency that provides protection for individuals by storing your energy through a monetary savings technology. And history has shown that all human beings converge to one form of money through the best form of money, how it's stored, how it's transferred, how it's there's different properties of it. And yeah, so I think you'd be a big proponent, especially you're a very conscious entrepreneur that is super healthy, and to store what you're earning from your clients in a form of money that will save is a much superior form of savings compared to the US dollar.
Yeah.
I think that's really important for people like yourself. I can recommend, I usually just recommend one website because that website has an index of all the great like books that you can read. But anyways,
cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, we covered a decent amount. And I think that's good to wrap up. I appreciate your time, appreciate your energy. I'm glad I met you.
Yeah, this is fun.
I'm glad Ryan introduced me to you. And every so often I'll have the guests, if they want to, display a message from their heart that they'd like to present to the audience as to conclude. Okay. You don't have to.
No, I want to.
And
I just have to think about it. Gosh, I'm just like,
because everything we might have been all over the place a little bit, and that's mostly my fault.
No, it's fun.
But
it's a normal conversation.
Yeah,
I think that's how it goes. That's the spirit of things.
Right.
Because it's like that's part of the whole God universe thing is just letting the spirit move through you and not putting any judgment on it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, part of it for me is like not like don't be afraid to be yourself in any moment and any time, no matter what, because that's what makes most people sick. And like really actually get to know what yourself is minus other people's opinions around you. And like don't forget to play and figure out what play means to you as an individual, because it's the most important thing. That's how we get past all the bullshit and all the stress and all the everything, is to laugh and to enjoy our life.
Yeah.
And like really be present in each moment.
And
I think that's the piece to it too, is like, don't forget to be present. And not the, weird meditative whatever of it all, just like actually be here. And use your phone when you need it, like we were talking about earlier, but then just like set it down and be there.
Yeah.
In a moment.
Yeah.
Follow your purpose.
Love it. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And I'm sure we could have more hours of conversation about this topic because I'm really fascinated with it. And it's
we should do mushrooms and do one of these one time.
Oh, I actually did. Yeah, I actually did take a small smidget today.
Yeah.
Microdose. But for some, I don't know if it's just not enough. It doesn't usually like kick in, or I don't like it's like
we should take like a
like 200 milligrams.
1 gram.
Oh boy.
Podcast. It'd be hilarious. It'd be amazing. Yeah. You have to record the video. Teach people how to be free.
Yeah.
Or we could just like smoke a joint and then smoke a bag. I'll bring my volcano.
Oh boy. I don't know if I'll be able to operate.
You would, because you would be really comfortable with being yourself in that moment.
Yeah.
Part of being present.
Yes.
Be hilarious.
That's true. Well, thank you very much.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Oh God, mushrooms and weed podcast coming up.
Not together. Separate.
Just separate. All right. Well, I think that concludes.
Yeah.
Peace.
Bye.